Right now, right now. 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 Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We gotta add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. Well, it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your weekdaily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about some of the recent developments on Bitcoin. As you know, we have had a massive piece of news break in the fact that Jane Street seems to have been manipulating the Bitcoin market, and we actually even now seem to have a lawsuit coming from coming from one of Trump's companies in the direction of Jane Street. Essentially, what the allegation goes, and it's not even so much of an allegation, just seems to be what's happening at this point. Jane Street was basically performing a naked short on Bitcoin at about 10 a.m. Eastern every single day, just a little bit after market open. And that's theoretically erased tens of billions of dollars worth of value out of the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency markets. And so today we're going to be discussing exactly what that means, why that's so important, and why now that this seems to have ceased, that the next couple of months on Bitcoin may end up actually being even more bullish than we thought. So, without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. My name is Jeb McAfee. I love coming here and teaching you guys about how to succeed in the realm of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and that is exactly what we are going to do today. So, let's dive right on into it. Unmissionable is in chat. Good to see you. Bardazon is in chat. Rocket Race Official is in chat. Kinda Gostino is in chat. Said we're going to dump. Rocket Race Official in chat. Christopher Ryan said, yo, financial sovereignty family. Ready for a 10x to the upside? It's coming eventually. It's going to take some time, but it's going to happen. Wow Toys Let's Play is in chat. Said, got a real good feeling. Miguel Rengel said, hola, Jeb. Buenos dias, brother. Buenos dias. ¿Cómo está? Muy bien. Gracias. Christopher Ryan is in chat. Florida J is in chat. Jane Street been keeping Bitcoin down. Excuse me. Is it about to moon? Moon would be a strong word, but if Jane Street has been suppressing the price of Bitcoin as much as we think that they have, then yes, this is definitely a bullish catalyst in the sense that we have just removed a bearish catalyst. So this does change quite a few things. So we're going to be discussing that in today's video. Tall Paul in chat said, good morning. 4-wave incoming question mark. Crypto Mini Bike in chat said, good morning, Jeb. Good morning to you as well. Nimio said, when are we going below 60? Well, this Jane Street news makes it more likely that $60,000 is not going to be breached in the short term. This is good news. Ultimately, we're going to need to see a couple of days worth of price action where Jane Street is not manipulating the market before we can fully understand exactly how this new realm is going to look. We're going to discuss more of that in just a second. Need clarity. No Cheaters Act soon. Crypto King said, morning, brother. Praise God. Amen to that. Hey, guys, today's stream is brought to you in part, if you did not already know, by the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. So make sure to sign up for CT2A with the link in the description box down below so that you can learn to do the kind of technical analysis that we do here at the Crypto Jeb YouTube channel. Without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. We're still in bear market, though. This just speeded up the crash with Jane Street. So what just came out about Jane Street in no way, at least in my opinion, indicates that the bear market is over. I would be shocked if Jane Street's, redemptions nightmare was a big enough story to have completely caused the bear market. I believe that the bear market was probably going to happen anyway. However, this is a very big however. Jane Street's consistent selling at the open into low liquidity has obviously been a very large part of the issue. So you can even see here, Jane Street definitely seems to be a little bit guilty. This is their X account. They have removed every single one of their posts. And they're allegedly, we'll leave it with allegedly, there is allegedly a screenshot of them saying, what are you going to do, arrest us? So at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is that Jane Street has essentially been performing something akin to market manipulation, where they have been selling Bitcoin at the open. And a part of the reason that this is taking place is because Jane Street is one of 4 companies that are authorized participants in the Bitcoin ETF space. So theoretically, when you buy Bitcoin through an ETF, Jane Street is one of the companies that is supposed to go and buy Bitcoin on the spot market to take Bitcoin out of circulation. And with Jane Street not doing that, what that essentially means is that they are, on the one hand, not providing the buying pressure that the Bitcoin ETF purchasing is supposed to provide, which essentially means that, at least for Jane Street's part, the Bitcoin ETFs have been acting like paper Bitcoin in the times that Jane Street has not been acquiring Bitcoin. But on the other hand, it does seem that they've been shorting Bitcoin at the same time, every single market open at 10 a.m. And this is something that we have noticed. A lot of traders have noticed this exact phenomena. If we just draw a vertical line, even recently through 10 o'clock, what you're going to find throughout the, if we were to look here at the last several months, you're going to find a lot of these major drops here are happening basically at the open. See, here's the open right here. There's your open. Okay, you fast forward a little bit. Here's an open. Fast forward a little bit. Let's see. Basically, we're just looking for these big dumps, and you're going to notice that they're taking place right there at 10 o'clock. It's algorithmic selling. We've heard a lot of stories about how, quote unquote, someone is unwinding positions. Have you heard that? Right? This one wouldn't count, actually, because this was on a Saturday. But regardless, you can see essentially what's taking place here, right? There is a great deal of forced selling that is taking place on Bitcoin, and that is providing bearish pressure and helping push us to the downside. And so what we're looking at now is, can this development, Jane Street no longer doing this, can this actually create the kind of bullish momentum that is necessary to break through some of our local levels of resistance? We have a multitude of very important levels of resistance directly above us. First and foremost, we have $70,000, which is where we rejected off of yesterday around noon. Is Bitcoin going to be able to break through $70,000? Which also represents the previous bull market's all-time high, because that's basically at $69,000. Or, on the other hand, is Bitcoin going to be stuck below this downtrending level of resistance here that is built off of all of these movements back here, and all of these movements here, and all of these movements here? Is Bitcoin going to be stuck there, or is Bitcoin going to end up actually being able to break through? And that's the question on the floor today. So, let's discuss. Here on the 4-hourly chart, we are noticing that the RSI has set significantly higher lows, which indicates that the bulls are regaining some degree of control. My concern with this would be that we have an uptrending level of resistance on the RSI, and we have to some degree a downtrending level of resistance on the price action. This is not the kind of bullish setup that we want to see for Bitcoin to be able to break bullish here. We need to see Bitcoin break through $69,000. This would be one of our key levels. That is the level of the previous all-time high. We also, out here on the daily chart, need to see Bitcoin break through a few other levels as well. The visible range volume profile shows us that the point of control right now is basically more or less where we are as it updates here. You can see it's basically here at $67,100, $67,200. This is virtually exactly where Bitcoin finds itself right now. If we go ahead and draw the point of control here on the visible range volume profile, what you're going to see, and this is not an exact level, but what you're going to see is that it's basically where Bitcoin is right now. We're maybe a couple $100 above it, depending on how exactly you chart it. But the point is, Bitcoin needs to break away from that. If it's able to, then let's see, where are they? Tall Paul in chat said, we may be looking at that wave 4 being built. Elliott wave theory is very useful right now, and a lot of people are using it very wrong. Elliott wave is not this extremely complicated structure when it comes to the major impulses, the five wave count. It's actually pretty simple. You have 3 rules and you have to follow them. And if you do, it's very obvious that so long as Bitcoin does not break above $80,000 in just the next couple of in the next here in 2026, that if we reject from $80,000, that we would be expecting a wave 5 count dropping us lower. Okay, so that does indicate that at some point in the very near future, we're going to be seeing some kind of reprieve, which will theoretically give Bitcoin a bounce. And it is increasingly looking like that's what's going to take place. What we need to be looking for is we need to see Bitcoin get above $69,000. That's the previous all-time high. We need to see Bitcoin get above the 200 weekly exponential moving average, which is trading perfectly sideways right now. It is completely flattened out. Bitcoin needs to get above this level for the bullish thesis to actually materialize. For Bitcoin's bullish thesis to materialize, Bitcoin's going to need to get above about $68,300 here at the 200 weekly EMA. And for now, if we did close the weekly candlestick like this, then essentially what we're building is a series of spinning tops signaling indecision. And if you're signaling indecision following a signal of confidence to the downside, confident bearishness here on this 3 white soldiers pattern, then what that tells us is that Bitcoin, at least theoretically, would be looking at weakening bearishness, which would, on the other hand, indicate possible increasing bullishness. And so what we are looking at right now is whether or not Bitcoin is going to be able to break through that 200 WEMA, and honestly, we're not going to know until we get there. If we do confidently break through that 200 WEMA, considering we have an open below it, if we close above it, then that would indicate that we are going to be seeing a major bounce. So, TLDR, if Bitcoin has a close on this weekly candle this Sunday above, let's say, about 68,900. Ideally, it'd be above 70,000, so that it'd be above the previous all-time high. Then that is where we would start to say that Bitcoin looks like it's moving in a bullish direction. On the other hand, if Bitcoin closes this weekly candlestick, in my opinion, anywhere beneath the 200 weekly EMA, then that is where this actually ends up becoming a bearish pattern as well. And the Jane Street getting caught narrative just ends up being a bull trap, and we drop lower. Genuinely, sometimes it's very obvious to tell what the market's going to do, and when it is, we tell you. Right now, we have to sit on our hands and see how the market responds to this Jane Street news. I mean, even right now, we're going into the 10 o'clock hour here in just a few minutes. It's interesting. I want to see what I want to see what the market's going to do on this. Are we going to moonshot at the 10 a.m. because of the idea of, oh, Jane Street's not selling, so we're going to go long? Or is it going to dump anyway because everybody's afraid? We'll see. We're gonna sit right here on the chart and watch. All right, apparently Jane Street is just one of many. Of course they are. There's all kinds of manipulation going on in the markets. The lawsuit will stop all of them. They don't want to get the heat from all this. Lawsuit was the white swan this run. Absolutely. At the end of the day, if we do see a reprieve on the bearish manipulation, yes, that would indicate that the bear market could be lighter. At the same time, though, $60,000 is still only a 55% bear market. If Bitcoin only has a 55% bear market, that really, in my opinion, only means one of a couple of things. One, it means that the next bull market is going to be shallower because it has a higher base. Two, the next bull market might be shorter, once again, because it has a higher base. Or three, Bitcoin is simply doing the exact same thing that gold did after it got its ETF, and it's having a mid-cycle correction, which we're calling a 4-year halving cycle bear market, because Bitcoin is completely tracking with the 4-year halving cycle. But actually what happens is it rocks everybody's expectations, just blasts off to infinity and beyond, which is why it's a good idea to acquire Bitcoin at any level. If you have an asset that you truly believe in that's 50% off, that's a time to be buying that asset. That is a time to buy that asset and enjoy the discount, right? This is a great level to buy Bitcoin at. It is a phenomenal level to acquire Bitcoin at, and I would not freak out or be terribly concerned about that. She's dumping again, Jeb. 69K is getting rejected. It is for now. So what we're seeing here on this chart, down here on the hourly chart, is interesting because we have essentially a symmetrical triangle pattern here that is breaking bearish. So what we want to see happen is we want to see if Bitcoin is able to run back up to this level of resistance. And if we reject, that's where we're probably going to fall over aggressively. If we never even get there and we keep falling, then obviously that'd be the case. And for Bitcoin to go bullish in the short-term timeframes on the hourly chart, we're going to need to get through both of these levels of resistance. But there is also, as we've noted, a great deal of resistance up here. And we even see that in the longer-term visible range volume profile. So something that we're just going to have to watch out for, though. if it was Jane Street dumping and they now stopped due to allegations, someone else now will dump at 10 a.m. to screw with our heads. Yeah, probably. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself, we have to kind of zoom out and go back to first principles. Why is Jane Street dumping, other than the fact it makes them a crap ton of money? Well, why would Jane Street, this global trading firm and liquidity provider, actually do that? Why would Jane Street do that? Well, one, again, it makes them a lot of money. But two, also, the lower they drop the price, the deeper you push into the trampoline, the farther you're going to bounce when you actually bounce. And so a lot of these liquidity providers and market manipulators and institutions and exchanges that are seemingly bent on crashing the price of Bitcoin, they're doing it for nefarious reasons, but what they're doing you can use to your advantage. If these entities are manipulatively dumping the market, that gives you a better entry. And so what we are expecting at this point is that Jane Street, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, Fidelity, even Vanguard at this point, all of the major companies, all of the major players, they're all expecting Bitcoin to go to $150,000 to $200,000 to $300,000. So if they have no morals, of course they're going to dump the price. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they suppress the price so they can get the Bitcoin from you on a massive discount and then sell it back to you as an investment product with a 20% CAGR beating QQQ in 5 years? Why not? That's exactly how institutions think. Let's take a hit today to prepare ourselves for 5 years. That's how they became institutions in the first place, is they invested both in technology and also in actual investments. So we can and should go after entities that are manipulating the market. But instead of sitting around and feeling bad about it, what we can do is we can actually say, how can I use this to my advantage as a trader? If they're dumping the market, if they're manipulating the market, then let's be careful about going into leveraged longs. Let's enjoy buying spot Bitcoin on a discount. Let's go ahead and buy spot Bitcoin on the discount. And so, yes, Jane Street has been one massive, it's just horrible. So anyway, let's jump back over here to the chart. Because they know the potential of Bitcoin has more X's. Exactly. All right, we have a great question on the floor. Let me go ahead and pull this up. So we have a reference that we can look at here. I like this. This is kind of funny. These are the three commandments of Elliott Wave. So you have your 3 rules of Elliott Wave. 1, wave 3 can never be the shortest impulse wave. 2, wave 2 can never go beyond the start of wave 1. We'll talk about that in a second. 3, wave 4 can never cross in the same price area as wave 1. So that is how we look at Elliott Wave. So we'll discuss Elliott Wave here in just a second under the instruction of those 3 rules. Looking at the chart as it stands. Danny Sticks said, Jeb, why are you ignoring me? I don't see any other messages. I don't see any other chat messages. Let me see. Bitcoin trending in chat. The lawsuit will stop all of them. They don't want to get... Yeah. Let's see. I don't see any other messages. So if you have something you want to add to the conversation, feel free to say it again, Danny. Apologies, I didn't see that. All right, so the question is, what is the rule for the top of the 4 wave and the bottom of the 5 wave? Is there a time limitation on the wave? There's not a time limitation on the wave, but what you need to understand is that the rules are fixed, but there are still other ways that we can grade the overall setup. If wave 4 looked like this could something like this be Elliott Wave? Yes, it could, but it's not really symmetrical. We do want to actually see some somewhat beautiful price action going on Bitcoin. So let's go over these 3 rules of Elliott wave theory again. Number 1, wave 3 can never be the shortest. Number 2, wave 2 can never go beyond the start of wave 1. And wave 4 can never cross on the same price as wave 1. So this is what we actually teach in the 3.5A Mastery over here in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. We actually teach about how to use Elliott wave. So it's right down here under all products. 3.5A Mastery. We actually teach exactly how to use Elliott wave as a trading strategy. So make sure to check all of this out. Links are in the description box down below. But anyway, the way that this is going to most likely play out is that Bitcoin is likely going to get a bounce, and that bounce is probably going to be below $80,000. If the bounce is not below $80,000, that's where we start wondering whether or not this is actually a bear market or whether or not this is just a V-bottom, a V-bottom correction like this. We're probably going to end up seeing Bitcoin rally up to about $80,000 and then reject. And the reason for that is that wave 4, as we recall, wave 4 can never cross into the same price area as wave 1. And so what that means, apologies, I'm missing one of my pieces of hardware broke today, so I'm having to do all the switching by my mouse. It's a little bit more janky, so I got to get that fixed as soon as the stream's over. But wave 4, that's this wave right here, can never cross into the territory of wave 1, which means that if wave 4 breaks above $80,000, then we have invalidated the Elliott wave count, and this is no longer at that point considered Elliott wave. This would be considered something else. It would be considered probably an ABC correction with a new uptrend forming. If we were to break above 80, then we wouldn't consider this a 4 wave. We would probably consider it a 1 wave and see if we can start building a new 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the upside. And so that's what we would be looking at there. If we never get a bounce, then that means that the 3 wave is not actually over. So the 3 wave we're drawing here at $60,000 on the 2nd of February, but ultimately if we never get a bounce, then that means that the bounce is not actually over, obviously. So the bounce could be anywhere below $80,000 and still be Elliott wave. Now, we also have to make sure that the 3 wave is not the smallest. So by price action, the first wave was $46,000 tall. This wave was $37,000 tall, which means that we would have to see the 5 wave be less than $37,000 tall, which is a big part of the reason why I think that the bottom is somewhere above $40,000, because if the 5 wave was more than $38,000 tall, then it would invalidate the Elliott wave theory. And generally speaking, that's not going to happen, because what's going to happen is as the Elliott wave structure builds, as you get down here towards the azimuth of the 5 wave, you're going to see an incredible amount of buying pressure, which would likely indicate that Bitcoin would see a ridiculous amount of institutional and retail investment in the $40,000 range, which means that the bottom would probably be $40,000 or higher. So this is where we have said consistently for the last several months here on the channel that the bottom for Bitcoin is probably somewhere below $60,000, somewhere above $40,000. We still, even with this Jane Street news, do not have a very strong bounce coming into Bitcoin. It's just nothing to write home about. If anything, we actually see very little action going into the 10 o'clock open here. If anything, we're seeing the market has gone through a bit of a drop. So, and that's a few minutes before the 10 o'clock open, right? So doesn't seem to be having a big impact right now. In other words, unless we can see a very strong breakout above about $70,000, the breakout has not happened yet. So we need to see a breakout above $70,000 before we can actually start saying that we're bullish. So our thesis has been that $60,000 is not the bottom, and that we're probably going to see sub $60,000 again relatively soon. And that's what we're going to be sticking to until we see confirmed bullish structure pointing us above $70,000. And that, as of right now, has not yet occurred. That would, as we discussed, require a break above this level of support right here. You could argue that Bitcoin is in the process of doing that by breaking above this downtrending level of support. And that would be a fair argument, but I'd still like to see Bitcoin break out of this gravity well around $70,000 a little bit more. If we do bounce here around 67,000, then that's where we could have that underside, overside test. So there is possibility that we're building something, but we're in the very early days of it. All right. What happens after wave 4 and 5? Great question. So generally speaking, what's going to happen after wave 4 and 5 is a little bit more difficult to forecast because we're dealing with quite a long way from now. But generally, what you're going to be looking at here is Bitcoin is going to most likely bottom on boredom, and there's probably going to be a lot of time down here to accumulate, which is part of the reason why people are starting to think that this was the bear market bottom, because we're getting a lot of time to accumulate down here. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the bear market bottom. It could mean that we're right here and we're about to dump off a cliff and we're about to drop even farther. But you're probably going to get a lot of time to accumulate. Generally speaking, in bear markets, Bitcoin gives you a great deal more time to accumulate at lows than it gives you to sell at the highs. And so it is critically important that we understand that we're going to have some time to accumulate at the bear market lows, wherever those may be, most likely, and we can acquire down in those levels. So again, I'm looking at the low 50s as probably a bottom, right? So that's where I see that going. Now, as far as after the five wave count concludes, I think you'll probably end up seeing something very similar happen to what happened in the last cycle. You're going to end up seeing some break of structure where Bitcoin starts breaking above these longer-term moving averages again that are starting to flatten out. You're probably going to see some laddering above these longer-term moving averages, like the 200s and the 300, and you're going to see some breaks of structure and tests. And it's probably going to take until about middle of 2026 before you see Bitcoin return back to all-time high. That is, of course, if we follow through on the traditional structure of the bull market. And it is very tempting to think, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense, Jeb. Bitcoin's going to go back to all-time high before then. But you have to remember that when Bitcoin was down here on the 200 moving average last time, it took Bitcoin 2 years to get back to all-time high. So we can't just talk about structure. We also have to talk about duration. Bitcoin bear markets classically are approximately 14 months long. And throwing out our history and our historical record without a good reason is a recipe for getting wrecked. So we don't want to just go out and make up our own rules and say the bear market's only going to last 4 months when the first bear market lasted 14 months, the second bear market lasted 12 months, the third bear market lasted 12 months, right? And then we have this bear market that's allegedly only going to last 4? I think it should last at least 12, which would put us in October. So Jane Street or no Jane Street, Jane Street's dumping obviously exacerbated the bear market, but you also have to recall that according to the story, Jane Street got some heat. They stopped selling, and then they started doing this again relatively recently, post-ETF era. And some of the selling they were doing was in the bear market, was in the bull market, I'm sorry. And so they're not the only reason that we're going through a bear market. It's very easy to have a piece of news come out and say, aha, now I know why the bear market occurred. Well, no, the bear market was probably going to happen with or without Jane Street. Jane Street simply found a way to make a boatload of money in the middle of the bear market in a way that, frankly, hurt people. So what we're most likely going to see happen is a bear market that looks a little bit something like this. We're not likely done with it yet. If Bitcoin dropped down to $40,000, that'd be a 68% drop. I'm not even necessarily convinced we're going to drop that far, but we probably will drop somewhere in that range. If we drop down to $50,000, that's a 60% drop. Anything above 60% is highly, highly, highly possible. Should not be discounted just because it would hurt your fees. You understand? We will probably break below this long-term uptrending level of support as well. This long-term uptrending level of support has to be calculated in all of this at the same time. It is the overall support structure for Bitcoin. And the last time that we had support structure like this, it broke. And when it broke, you saw the rest of the bear market. So it's tempting to say that, oh, Bitcoin's going to hold this level of support right here. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It's very possible that we do, but it's also very possible that we don't. Honestly, if we fell below this and the rest of Bitcoin's history stayed below this level and used it as resistance, you could still hit $1 million by 2033, which is a phenomenal return. So you do have to understand that these uptrends are not going to last forever. I mean, if you look out to 2050, this uptrend is pointing at $40 million a coin. It's probably not going to happen. So when are we going to break this uptrend? Are we going to break this uptrend? Is this uptrend going to end up acting as resistance moving into the next market? Honestly, yeah, it genuinely might. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happen in the same way that when we saw this uptrending level of support right here get broken, the rest of the bull market existed betwixt these two trend lines. It existed between these two trend lines. In fact, you could even redraw this and use it explicitly as resistance in the bear market, in the previous bull market. So are we going to see something similar to that happen? Honestly, there's a very real possibility that what you see happen is that the future bull market exists somewhere in this zone here, somewhere between these two lines. And let's remember our timing. 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 down here somewhere. You start seeing the reversal of maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. This is essentially what you end up seeing the next bull market look like. It's probably going to look something like this. And we're going to be so tunnel vision down here on the short-term time frames that we're going to think, oh my goodness, the future bull market is just, it's so different. No, it's so interesting, whatever you might want to call it. But what it just boils down to is that you really can just come on here on Heikin Ashi, go out to the monthly chart, and see just how simple the movements are. We go up for a little while, then we go down for a little while. We go up and then we go down. We go up, and then we go down. And then we go up, and then we go down. It's really very simple. It's not as complicated as it seems. And so that would be my overall thesis of how the next bull market looks. The next bull market is likely going to look something a little bit like this. You may end up seeing this major inverse head and shoulders pattern structure, which could send us into the 3-wave. That big impulse. We saw something kind of similar happen over here, except it was more of a cup and handle. There wasn't really any left shoulder because Bitcoin just plummeted. But you saw essentially what amounted to a cup and a handle. And the cup and handle gave us a price target right here. And that price target pointed us towards all-time high, and that's where we went. And so my anticipation is that sometime in, I'm going to say probably like 2027, late 2027, early 2028, you see Bitcoin returning back to all-time high. And that's probably going to be on that 3-wave. Then you see a drop, maybe down to 80 or 100,000. Maybe you bounce off of 100,000. And then that 5-wave is where you really go crazy moving into 2029 towards the post-halving year. So that's where I think we're going. As Michael Norris said so eloquently in chat, token go up, token go down. That generally is how markets work. So something like this is exactly what I think is going to take place. But the weird part is as soon as you think you have time, all of a sudden you don't. Which is why it's important to be dollar cost averaging through the bear market. It's really easy to get caught up on, oh boy, I'm going to buy the exact bottom. And what ends up happening is you don't buy the exact bottom. You get left the frick behind. I'm just saying, it's just the truth. So from here to $231,000 is a 257% return. You got to ask if that's worth it for you. I think it is. Essentially, if this is what the future bull market is going to look like, then that is basically where I anticipate that if you went long right now, let's say we drop down to $45,000 at the absolute to $40,000 at the absolute lowest. That's the worst that we expect things could get. The next bull market I anticipate will take us to $250,000. That's a 6.5 risk-to-reward ratio. If you believe in Bitcoin, and by the way, this is what this pattern looks like on the linear chart, right? You may end up seeing Bitcoin, it could go lower, it could go down to like 180. But ultimately, I do think that we'll probably break this trend line on the linear chart. I think you're probably going to see this trend line play out more so on the log chart. But yeah, so either way, I do think that these are solid entries. That'd be my take on that. That would be my take on that. All right, guys, we are about to wrap it out, but I do want to let you know that the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy is linked in the description box down below. If you have not already, I highly encourage you to check out CT2A because we have dozens of videos over here teaching you exactly how to do technical analysis, and I want to help you learn. I want to help you learn exactly how to do TA, and the best place to do that is in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, where I am going to teach you exactly how to do technical analysis. So if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to sign up with the link in the description box down below. It is going to be very helpful for you. is going to help you understand how to do the kind of technical analysis that we do every single day here on the Crypto Jeb YouTube channel. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on X for more content over at Crypto Jeb. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and stay tuned for more content. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.